The Visit to the Mansion, an extract from Little Women by Louisa May Alcott.
Jo March sometimes gazed at the stately mansion of the Lawrences, which seemed to her like a delightful, enchanted palace. She longed to befriend Laurie, a lonely and shy boy who lived in that huge house with his grandfather. One snowy afternoon, Jo saw Mr. Lawrence drive off. She set out towards the mansion and looked around. Suddenly, she spotted a curly head at an upper window. Jo tossed up a snowball, and Laurie peeped out, eyes bright with wonder. Jo called out, "How do you do?" Laurie croaked hoarsely, "I have a bad cold, and it's very dull here. Will you come upstairs and talk to me, please?" A little later, Jo appeared with a delicious blancmange and 3 kittens. The kittens turned out to be just the thing, as Laurie started laughing over them and soon grew cheerful. He then asked about Jo's sisters and shyly added, "Sometimes when I see you all sitting around the table with your mother, it's like looking at a picture." Laurie poked the fire to hide the sudden trembling of his lips. Jo was touched. "You could visit us," she said gently. "Wouldn't your grandpa let you?" "I think he would if I asked. He's very kind," said Laurie. Then Jo and Laurie started talking about books. Laurie led Jo through the rooms, letting her examine whatever struck her fancy. At last they reached the library, and Jo danced with delight. "Theodore Lorenz, you should be the happiest boy in the world," remarked Jo. "No one can live on books," said Laurie, shaking his head as he perched on a table. A little while later, Laurie had a doctor visiting him, and Jo went off to look at a portrait of old Mr. Lawrence. The door opened behind her. Without turning, she said, "Your grandpa looks stern, but he has kind eyes, and I like him." "Thank you, ma'am," said a gruff voice behind her. And there, to Jo's great dismay, stood old Mr. Lawrence. Later, an amused Mr. Lawrence invites Jo to tea. There, as Jo and Laurie talk merrily, he realizes how lonely Laurie has been and decides to send Laurie to the Marches' house occasionally.